Welcome to Fuller Expectations, the podcast for anyone looking at exploring growth, reinvention, and living a fuller life. I'm your host, Carrie Fuller, and every week we'll talk to guests and have honest conversations. We'll share inspiring stories and offer practical ideas to help you create a life that makes you feel aligned, empowered, and authentically yourself, no matter what age or stage you're in. I am so glad you're here. Let's get started with today's episode. I am so excited for today's episode, Life in Motion. It's about choosing joy, family, and the open road. After years of climbing the corporate ladder, my guest, Kristen, realized that she was pedaling in the wrong direction. She decided to trade in her secure job at a Fortune 100 company for the uncertain path of entrepreneurship. And she found that freedom, joy, and purpose was right there along the way. Now, through the Femme Cyclist and Rascal Rides, she coaches families, empowers women in cycling, and has built a thriving six-figure business doing exactly what she loves. In this inspiring episode of Fuller Expectations, we're going to talk about courage, community, and what it means to build a life that truly fits your passion. Let's dive in. Welcome, Kristen. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I am super excited. We've had a couple of episodes where we've featured guests who have had a career transition in midlife or even late 30s. And so it's a really popular topic, and we get a lot of comments from people about sharing more. I think it serves as an inspiration to people who have been thinking about doing something like this for a long time, and maybe they're just afraid to take the next step. So I'm super excited to talk with you today about your transition and how you left what was a very secure career with a Fortune 100 company where you had been for a really long time and just took a chance on yourself. And started doing something that you wanted to do and that you love. So let's jump into that, and we'll start with the leap from corporate to passion. So can you share with us what it was like working for the Fortune 100 company that you worked for so long?
So I'm sure, like many of the people listening that do work in a corporate job, there's a lot of great things about a corporate job. I had coworkers that I really loved. I had a great paycheck and great benefits. And I had a lot of career advancement there too. They paid for my master's degree and put me in a leadership development program. And there was all the reasons where this should have been such a great job for me. But at the end of the day, it did not make me happy. I was miserable. I would come home and cry when I got home from work, and it just wasn't the best fit for me.
What was the turning point that made you realize that it just was not your passion?
I think there were several things. One was looking around at my coworkers who this to them was their dream job. They were working at an aerospace company and they loved airplanes and aerospace, and they would have on their desk a little model airplane, and on the weekends they would go work on getting their pilot's license. And to them, this was like the dream, and it wasn't for me. I think realizing that. And then also, my son was born, and I all of a sudden was so sad that I wasn't able to be at home with him. I hated the fact that if he was sick, I had to ask permission to stay home. And so that was definitely a turning point for me too. It was those two things, like, this is not something I'm passionate about. And then also, this is just not working with my lifestyle.
It's totally understandable. I know a lot of people can relate to that. That very thing. How did you overcome the fear of leaving behind the security that you had, like you said, with really great benefits, and they helped fund your master's degree? So they obviously thought that you had career potential with them. So how did you overcome that sort of like anxiety of walking away from that?
There was one day where I was out with my husband and son, and my son at that point was about a year old. And we went on a mountain bike ride together. And I remember this Sunday afternoon. I remember it so well. We went on this ride and we got to the top of a climb, and we were eating a snack and all laughing together and having fun. And I was like, this is what I would love to do with my life. This is my passion, is biking with my family. And that seemed so crazy because that's not a job description. Nobody gets paid for biking with their family. And yet somehow in my heart, I knew that this was what I was supposed to do. So I started looking around, what are other people doing? And at the time it was like the blogging world was really big. So I was like, well, I could start blogging about biking with my son and sharing our stories. And I did, and lo and behold, it started making me money. And I did not just suddenly decide to quit my job and go all in on this. I started building my blog and learning to monetize it in these like tiny little, 20-minute segments a day. And I did that for 2 full years, building up that income stream before I decided to quit my job. And my husband came to me and said, let's go on this year-long road trip and quit our jobs and just go and do something that we really want to do. And that was my sink or swim moment with my business to see, can this support me full time? And jumped off the deep end and found out that it did support me full time. But I think the point is that I had built up to that point where I had the security net. And it wasn't like just like a spur of the moment decision. I built the life that I wanted before I got there.
And that's a great point because you need that transition. I would be so nervous without that. But were you familiar with blogging or did you have to do research?
I did research and I wouldn't recommend this. I think it's great to take courses and learn from somebody else who's done it, but I never even paid for anybody. I didn't get any help. I literally would just like Google things like, how do you start a blog? And then how do you monetize a blog? So it was just learning as I went. And I still go by that. Like, I think you can learn anything. And you can also look at other people's examples. Like if you see someone, back then it was blogs, I would look at other bloggers and see, like, what are they writing about? How does it seem like they're making money? And try and reverse engineer that for myself.
Amazing. How long did it take you before you started to monetize that once you started doing it?
Right away. And I recommend that to anybody. You might as well start trying to monetize right away. It's going to be tiny amounts in the beginning, but I'd say about a year in where I was making enough money, it was like, okay, this is actually going to be a real business and I can do something with this. But I think about a year to get like critical momentum going.
Yeah. And when you think about it, I mean, starting any kind of business, you have to think about that, the fact that it's going to take about a year to get anything off the ground.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
Doing something where you're working for yourself, it's just so ideal, especially like you said, you had a young family and you wanted to be accountable to your own self. So it's the perfect scenario.
And I think you probably could do it faster if you weren't working a full-time job, right? Like I was working a full-time job and raising a kid and trying to do things for myself too. So that was a year of like behind the scenes, small progress.
Why don't we tell listeners what it is that you do outside of the blog?
So I have 3 different businesses. One is the one I was talking about, Rascal Rides, where I blog about biking with my family and review kids' bikes and bike trailers and bike seats. And that's grown to a point now too where we have other families and other reviewers that help contribute to that. And then I have a similar but distinct website called Fem Cyclist, where I help women, particularly beginner women, get comfortable on the bike and get into cycling. And with that, I also have a YouTube channel and a podcast, social media for all of these things. So those are my 2 cycling businesses. And then the newest business I have is just my personal brand. And that's trying to help other people start businesses like me, because I have so many friends who come to me and say, oh, you're so lucky. I would love to do what you're doing. Well, you can. Anybody can. So, and it just has improved my life so much that I want to help share that information with other people too.
Yeah. It's just building the confidence and taking a chance on yourself.
Exactly. Yep. And learning skills we can learn new skills all the time. So
I know that you mentioned you had gone out for that ride and your husband said, let's quit our jobs and travel and cycle and all of that. So how did you first imagine turning your love of cycling into an actual business? How did you actually imagine that?
Well, it started with this idea in my heart that I need to somehow turn cycling into my business, into my income, but having no idea how to do that. And then going around and looking, how are other people in this space making money? What kind of business could I actually start around this? So I think that's something that if you have a passion, whatever it may be, like say it's baking or crocheting or whatever, to just go see like how are other people in this space making money, and if they can do it, that's a sign that you could do it as well.
Did you have any challenges in the beginning that made
Well,
you just want to give it up?
there were lots of challenges in the beginning, but it was all so new and exciting. And I really didn't have anything to lose in the beginning, right? Like if I made $1, I was like, well, that was $1 I didn't have yesterday. So that's great. So in the beginning, while things were challenging, it's exciting in the beginning. I think it was actually further on in business. It was in 2017, so full 5 years into doing this. I had my first really big roadblock, and that was that my website, Rascal Rides, got hacked by very sophisticated hackers in the Ukraine. And that not only took my website down, it also put into jeopardy partnerships I had with some kids' bike brands. And I ended up having to get an attorney. I ended up having to get a security company to get control of my website back. And that was the first time where I was like, this is very stressful. It's not just like a day at work where you go home and now it's somebody else's problem. Like this was my livelihood. This was everything I had built. And that was a challenge to me. That made me think a little bit about giving up and trying something else less stressful. And then I'd say in the last year or 2 years, have had a lot of problems with Google changing their algorithms with AI. Now people are not searching on Google as much for like best kids bike. They're going to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is telling them what kids bikes they should buy. So just a changing environment. And I've overcome it. I've created new income streams, but I think that that's why it's so important to build a business around something you love, because otherwise when the going gets tough, and it will get tough because business is tough, that you still want to go and you still want to do this thing. And if you're only motivated by the money, when the money dries up or you're making $1 less today than you made yesterday, then you're going to throw in the towel. And I think that that passion piece is the part that keeps you motivated long term.
So true. And it's interesting that you bring up AI, because I'm sure there are so many businesses that are impacted
Yes.
by AI. And it's funny because I heard a story once. There's a guy that I know that is the CEO for a company, and he was talking to a bunch of his new employees about change and about growing as things grow and making sure that we do grow as things grow. And he gave the example of Blockbuster Video. And he said that there was an opportunity for them to acquire Netflix. And they said no.
Interesting.
And I mean, look at Netflix. We all know. Remember when Netflix used to be CDs that would come to our mailbox?
Yeah.
And now everything is like streaming on TV, and it's just the whole advancing of technology and change.
Yeah.
And now there's no more Blockbusters because they didn't see what was down the road in the future with the way that people watch TV and movies. And so it's important to pivot when you have to and see the future and how things are changing so much.
Yeah. And sometimes it's easy to feel like the victim. For a while, I just felt like a victim, and this had happened to me. And I think, so many business owners felt that way during COVID when the pandemic hit their businesses, and you don't get to choose the environment. You don't get to choose the cards you're dealt. You just got to do the best with what you're given in the situations you're given.
And also, I think it shows the importance of diversifying income and doing more than one thing, because then it's like having all your eggs in one basket. You don't have to rely on. So it's always good to have a side hustle or something that you're trying to build where you're not relying on one source of income.
Yeah, so that's why I have 3 different businesses, and within each of those, I have multiple income streams too.
That's perfect. So let's shift to family, joy, and lifestyle.
Yes.
And I wanted to chat with you about how cycling has shaped your family's life and your relationships.
Well, it's been such a big part of our life, just because that's something that my husband and I value so highly. So when our son was little, we would always do on Sundays a bike ride as a family. To this day, my very favorite, most treasured moments are some of those bike rides that we did when he was young. For my husband and I, that's a really important part of our relationship. If we have a date night, rather than going to a movie, we go on a bike ride together. It's just really, really important to us. And I think that it's something like a shared value that we all have.
A lot of people dream about aligning family life with passions, and you've obviously done that really well. And it's nice that you have a shared interest with your husband.
Yeah.
So what were some of the first steps that you took to build income around your passion? You mentioned blogging. Was it with advertising or partnerships? How did that start?
So this is actually the beginning is a less glamorous story. So I started this blog and then I decided, well, maybe one of the best things I could do is try drop shipping. And at the time, if you like Googled how to make money online, everybody would tell you you should try drop shipping. And essentially what that is where you like sell a product and then the manufacturer ships it. So you never hold any inventory, but you're like have a store and you're selling things. And I did that for a short period of time and I was making money on it. And these were kids' bikes we're talking about, and like bike trailers and that kind of thing. But I quickly realized that I absolutely hated dealing with the customer service part of it. And especially because didn't actually have control over the shipping, it was a nightmare because I couldn't fix the problems for customers. And then I discovered affiliate marketing. So that was my first like really successful income stream that I went all in on. And affiliate marketing, for folks who don't know, it's just where you recommend a product, you have a link, and if people click through that link, then they make a purchase, you get a percentage of the sale. Then I was just able to not have to have any products of my own, not have to deal with customer service. I could just blog about my experiences and share the things that we really genuinely loved and used. And that was really like what my business was built on, was the affiliate marketing. It's still today my biggest income source. I think it's also my easiest income source. I don't have to create anything. I don't have to hold any inventory. I don't have to meet with people one-on-one. Love affiliate marketing. I still recommend that to anybody who wants to get started in online business. I think affiliate marketing is the way to go. You don't have to have a big audience to get started like you do with brand partnerships or sponsorships for a podcast or anything like that. And then over time, I've built other income sources. You mentioned advertising. So I get advertising on my blogs. I get advertising, AdSense on my YouTube videos. And then adding in active income too, I do now do those brand partnerships like sponsored Instagram posts and sponsored ads on my podcast. I do coaching, which is active income, but I really love passive income. So it's some kind of combination of those. And like, as we said, if one goes away or is impacted, having multiple income sources not only gives you diversity and stability, but you can also just like continue to stack them to build
Yeah.
your income.
I have two questions around that, just because
Sure.
people might be wondering. So, affiliate marketing, is it only one brand, or do you have multiple brands that you share?
Multiple brands. So you don't want to share too many brands because then you're just sharing anything and everything and it kind of
Mhm.
loses your authenticity, right? So I have a couple brands that are the primary ones. So like for Rascal Rides, I really love Woom bikes. They're one of my biggest affiliate partners. But almost anything you can be an affiliate for. And I just always recommend that it's something that you really love, that you can authentically recommend to people, that you have lots of experience with. And that also you really trust that brand because you aren't doing the customer service, that you really trust that they are going to do a good job and uphold your reputation. You don't want to put your reputation on the line.
Right. So, it's something that you already love, use, and would recommend
Yes,
anyway. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, you might as well make money from that.
Right. And
Yeah.
so, did you contact them to ask them about marketing their product, or did they approach you?
So there's two ways you can do it. One is there are all kinds of affiliate platforms out there that are essentially a third party, and a brand will go onto that third party and list their products, and then you go sign in as an affiliate and look for those products. Whatever product you want, like say it's a sofa, like some XYZ brand of sofa, you can go on Google and type XYZ sofa affiliate program, and something will very likely pop up. Most big companies have an affiliate program. Sometimes you do not find an affiliate program, and in those cases, I have just found a marketing email, found whatever email I can, and email the company and say, this is my website, this is the kind of content that I create, and I really love your product. I would love to be an affiliate partner. Is there any way that we could work together? And a lot of times they will. They'll go ahead and set up an affiliate program just to work with you.
I love that. I love the creativity. I love the initiative. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And so, over time, you really just grew your blog, your podcast, and your coaching businesses that
Yes.
you've done. into a six-figure business.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Was it hard for you to get an audience for that? Or was it something that really started once you started, it started just building?
So in cycling in particular, and I think this is true of so many things in life, is that the cycling industry is very much made by men for men. And if I had just gone out and started a business about cycling or just started writing about cycling, it would have gotten lost in the noise. And there was already a lot of people doing that. So for me, it was looking at who is underserved, who is not already being served, and how can I help them? And it also just happened to be that I was that person, right? Like I was that mom who was underserved and was out there doing research, trying to figure this out on my own. I was that woman who was trying to find a bike saddle that was comfortable for a woman because most of them are made for men and nobody talks about what saddle's comfortable for women. So I think that just ended up working really well for me. There was this audience that was underserved that I was able to speak to. And I think that in so many areas that people can do this because so much of the information out there, so many of the systems have been built by men for men. So women in particular can use their voice to like help give information, to help educate, to help empower women, families, just speaking up, sharing what you know.
That's a good point. I think that's true. And I know last fall I bought a bike and we went through the whole experience with the comfort, and the owners of the store were men. And
right.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. But when you just mentioned that, I can totally see how a lot of it is geared towards men.
Yes, very much so.
So as you look back, what would you be able to share with us about the biggest personal transformation since leaving the corporate life?
I think the biggest is just that I now live with more joy and with more ease. When I was working my corporate job and I would come home from work and I'd be like, well, I need to spend quality time with my son. And I also need to get in a workout and I need to get dinner made. And then after dinner, I'd be cleaning up. And I just remember being at the dishwasher and like my neck would hurt and my lower back would hurt. And I just felt like physical weight on my body and resentment and anger and just feeling like this is too much. This is too heavy of a load for me to carry. So I think the biggest thing for me is just having a little bit more time and a little bit more space in my life to take a breath, to have joy and have moments for myself. And just in doing that, now I can do the dishes at night and enjoy doing the dishes, as much as one can. And so it's actually just been a physical transformation where I feel more at peace.
I have heard that from literally each person I have talked to about career transition and how they were in a position at their job that they just didn't love their job, and how they didn't even realize the stress and the physical effects of working day in and day out, doing something that you just don't love. And then when you leave, people have literally shared this, how they didn't even realize their physical pain was from that. They thought it was from something else. They thought it was from getting older, or they thought it was from maybe they hurt themselves or anything like that. And they didn't relate it to their work. It was that, because then they leave the job and all of a sudden they don't have that pain anymore.
It's wild, but it's true.
It is wild.
Yeah.
So if there's people listening out there and are in a position where their job either doesn't bring them joy or brings them more stress than they need, or they're feeling anxious about just being able to get everything done that they need to get done and maybe lacking work-life balance and things like that, it's really important to understand the impact of what that is on your health.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So what advice would you give to someone who is listening, who feels stuck and they're in a career that they don't love, like we were just talking about? What advice would you give to them?
I would say know that you can start over as many times as you want. I think a lot of times, especially if we spend a lot of years building this career or we get our identity from it, that it can feel like you're stuck. This is the path I've chosen. And that's just not true. We can start over as many times as we want. We can reinvent ourselves as many times as we would like. And that you can start building now your future. So even though you may still have to go to your job every day, you got to pay the rent and you got to put food on the table, that you can still start taking small actions towards something better for yourself. And I mentioned earlier, that I built my business in the beginning for those first 2 years, literally in 20 minutes chunks of time. I would spend my lunch break at work. I would do nap time on the weekend. I would do 20 minutes before bed at night. And it seems very small at the time. It doesn't seem like you're making much progress when you're only working 20 minutes a day or 40 minutes a day on it. But you do that consistently, and then one day you turn around and you're like, all those micro chunks of time built something really meaningful for myself. So just every day, start taking some action towards what you would like.
Agree completely. Because I think it does really, where it doesn't seem significant in the moment, but every bit of time that you put into something, you'll get it back on the back end. It is an investment in what you're trying to do. You just don't see it initially.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what if it takes you a full year to build something, because that year is going to go by anyhow, and it's going to go by quickly.
You're living the year anyway, so why not take the time? Yeah. I think to expect that things would happen faster than a year is probably unrealistic. I mean, maybe some people are able to do it, but don't put an unrealistic expectation on yourself either, that things should happen overnight or from 1 week to the next or to the next month or whatever, because that's just not realistic.
Right.
I think. So you have to give yourself time, but consistency, I think, is really important, and not giving up. You have to keep going and believe in yourself. And so I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So what does living your best life mean to you now?
Living my best life, I think it's just doing the things that bring me joy, that make me feel alive and passionate. And I just feel like, especially as I'm getting older, I'm 41 now, every year is like a smaller percentage of my overall life, and time just seems to move faster and faster. And so just really, if I want to make something happen, make it happen, and not waste this one precious life I've been given.
So I am going to put some information in the show notes about where people can connect. It's been great information. I think people will get a lot out of this. And is there anything that I didn't ask you that you think might be helpful?
I would just say, one of saying I always have is that your passion is your purpose, and it doesn't matter how silly that passion may be. For some people, it's Pokemon cards, and you can't say, well, Pokemon cards can't be my purpose. But if it is something that makes you feel alive and brings you joy, and even better if you can somehow use that passion to serve other people, that is good enough. That I think, I have that Sunday school song from when I was little, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. And I just think that's our purpose in life, is to let our light shine.
And people can take their passion and put it into Chat GPT and maybe find to make that their purpose.
There you go.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
What an inspiring conversation. I love how today's guest showed us that walking away from a path that doesn't fit, even one that looks perfect on paper, can actually open the door to a life filled with purpose, joy, and adventure. If her story resonated with you, make sure to check out her work at rascalrides.com and tune into the Fem Cyclist podcast. And if you're looking for more conversations about reinvention and living your best life in the back half, don't forget to follow Fuller Expectations on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon Podcasts so you never miss an episode. And if you thought of someone who might enjoy the message today, please share this with them. We would love to have you and anyone that you think might enjoy the message as part of our podcast family. Thanks for listening today. If this episode sparked something in you, please share it with a friend, leave a comment or a review, and reach out and let me know what resonated. Remember, no matter what age or stage of life you're in, you can pivot. And always remember, the second half of life is not a winding down. It's a waking up. Please follow or subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of our podcast family. Let's keep showing up and being the best version of ourselves. Until next time, take care.